Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. My name is Kris, and I am here with my super organized, very clean co-host, and her name is
Rachel. Hello,
Rachel's
everyone.
here. Okay, Rach, I called you super organized and clean because I am struggling, as usual, with a little
The
with a little
struggle
something.
is real.
Actually, this is funny because it's not funny to me, but I am struggling as usual and as always because as I have mentioned many times before, I think in my life, I I have too many people for the house that I live in. So I'm really happy where I live. I love my neighborhood. I love my neighbors, all that. But I'm always kind of crunched for time, and I'm older house, so it wasn't built for speed, if you will. It wasn't built for the way that people live in the 2000s. It was built for the way people lived in the 70s, which is way different, right? And so I'm always kind of struggling with that. So now, as I yesterday, just I mean, I'm literally came home. I had a full day of work. Come home. I can't even function in my house because I had asked my kids, like, hey, I need you guys to do the dishwasher and put the dishes in. Like, this is it, right? These are the two things I asked them to do. I come home, of course, the dishes are full. The sink is full of dishes, the same dishes that were there, plus a few extras, a few add-ons. Fantastic. And it's super stressful for me, because it's like if I come home and God bless anyone who has done like the dishes or maybe like wipe down the counter, I immediately like can relax. It's just like, oh, okay. Or when I, you know, thank gosh, have the times when, I have someone come in and like really clean the house and you walk in your kitchen and you're just like, wow, how do they do this? And mine, I just could never make it look like this. So you could help me kind of because I want to talk about organizing, and I'm a really organized person, which is I think the struggle. That's the disconnect for me. I'm a very organized person mentally and physically and personally. But when it comes to just like the clutter buildup and the chaos and other people's stuff and not having time to literally run after stuff and minimalism and all the pressures on me to kind of get it right, uh,
Mhm.
I would like some help framing this, please, today.
Mm.
My
It's
messy house. And plus it's just the holidays, there's all kinds of chaos with the holidays, it's so complicated, for sure.
it is the holidays and all the kids are home and all of those pieces make it even more challenging and you have just more stuff out for the
More stuff.
holidays, right?
Yeah.
So, it's funny that you mentioned this because I was just reading this interesting study because I love to geek out on this stuff
Perfect.
about actually how women's cortisol levels, their stress hormones, are higher when there's clutter,
Oh,
when there's mess,
I would agree with that 100%.
compared to men.
Yeah.
Right? Compared to men. And so you're like, oh, when I come home and like things are organized, I can just relax. That means like there's no stress, nothing going on here. The hormone is like you're just like nothing's firing. Because it actually is a part of us. And to have that organization, and to have that actually allows us to relax and it makes us feel quote unquote safe.
Ah.
And I thought that was so interesting because it's men don't have
No,
that,
okay, I
right?
I
So
know
they
I
don't
can tell you my
understand
sample
why
size of
that
one that they
triggers.
don't have it. I don't know. I didn't study at UCLA, but I can tell you my sample size at one, which is why it's so interesting that you said that because
Yeah.
I'm like, it doesn't really it bothers my girls a little bit, actually. It's interesting that you said that, but not, it's not like we don't live in
Mm.
squalor, let's just get that straight, right? So, but they're the ones who are like, I need to clean my room, and my boys do it too, but my husband is like, it never said, and I'm always like, God, is he gonna say anything about my closet? Like, it's a mess. Like, is he gonna say like, hey, are you gonna move this stuff? Are you gonna like, because I have this whole way that I do stuff in my closet, right? So I'm always thinking like, is he gonna say? Never says anything about it. And I'm clear now that it just doesn't hit him the same way that it does me
No.
or my kids or whatever. It just doesn't hit him that way.
Yeah. And and that's interesting because then you think about it, like some people are more wired for it than
Yeah.
others, right? So, there's the idea like, oh, she's just really a clean person. And it's like, no, actually, she's probably just trying to reduce her
Yeah,
stress.
she's probably
She
anxious, and
knows that
that's
she
her way
feels
to
better.
reduce her
Yeah.
anxiety. Yeah.
Totally, and it's not maybe I mean, some people can say that that's just like a form of control, like controlling your environment and that type of thing, but there is something like I am much more productive in an environment that is
Yeah.
organized. Like, I can actually focus
Yes.
better. I can actually perform better. I can, like all those things I am better at when my environment has space for it.
Mhm.
When it is cluttered, I feel like my mind is actually cluttered.
Yeah.
And so I think my space represents how I feel. And so when my space is cluttered, you probably don't want to hang out with me at that
Well,
moment.
it's stressful. It's actually really interesting too, on like so many points actually. But it's probably my I have this great love of hotels. And one of the things I love, or
Yes.
the thing I love about going to hotels, one is that they have a bathtub because I don't have a bathtub in my bathroom. I again, my 70s
Mm.
house, they thought they were being so cool. They were like, "Oh, we're just not going to put in bathtubs anymore because that's just so passé, I guess." So I don't have a bathtub in my master. Everyone knows that now.
Those are just for
It's
kids.
for bathrooms for kids, which they have one, right? So, but when I go to hotels, I love having a bathtub, one, but also because what you're saying is true. None of my monkey mess is in that hotel room. It's just me, a clean bed, a straightened up
Mhm.
desk, a simple TV if I even want to use
Yes.
it, just a very curated little space for the closet. So I see your point for sure, and I'm sure that's why I push to that, just like, oh, I just love to stay in a hotel because it gives me just yes, I get to be alone, which I also enjoy. Like I like to regroup that way, but it gives me just a moment of complete clarity, just peace.
Yeah.
Nothing's there. And if I have to get a project
Yes.
done or something,
Peace.
I'll often go and just check into a hotel for a day or whatever, just to like really focus and get my stuff done. That's very interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure okay, so let me tell you this one too. So I have a layered story with this organizing thing. And so in college, I had a boyfriend in college who shall remain very nameless. But I it wasn't even that big of a it wasn't even that big of a thing in college. But I saw him later and I was doing a project or whatever. I don't remember, but I was doing a project. So I had all this stuff in the back of my car. And, I don't remember what the situation was, if I was, like, picking him up at the airport or trying to be nice or something like that, but I don't even remember. But I had all this stuff in the back of my car, to do this project, and if you know me, you know that that's kind of my thing. I do projects, I decorate for my kids, like, I always have some state of, like, poster board and, like, glitter and stuff going on. So he made a comment. He's like, "God, you're so messy," something like this, in my car. And I had this stuff in my car for a very specific reason, right? And it wasn't I'm looking at it, I'm like, "Okay, it's really not a mess." I have, like, a rolled up poster board, I have this, I have that, and that. And it's in the back seat of my car, not in the front seat where he's gonna sit or not in the trunk where he's gonna put
Yeah.
right? And I'm like, "Okay, this is really interesting," because I was I was at his place later, like, we're friends, whatever.
Mm.
So, and the difference was, Rach, I'm over there like cleaning off the counters, bleaching the bathroom, cleaning, like actually cleaning versus being neat. So that's a whole thing too, because
Oh,
I am
that's a
very
whole
clean.
different
Like
thing.
I am
Yeah.
very clean, right? So when it comes to, all my counter, you're not going to find dust bunnies in my house, right? You're not going to find,
Right.
goob around my sinks. You're not going to find that. Like everything's going to be clean. So if you come and you see I don't even know. I mean, I got a bunch of guitars. I have a bunch of nonsense, right? Because it's just a lot of people live here and they have hobbies that I don't. So whatever. Um, but you're gonna see that, and that's another whole layer of judgment and to your point, anxiety. And I just grew up, my mom
Mm.
clean, I clean. It's just that's just kind of to your point, like what I can't not wipe a sink. Even when I'm in the plane and I go to the bathroom and it's like, wipe the sink for the next bathroom. I'm like, I'm gonna wipe the sink for this whole plane. Like this whole, like, I literally am in there like, this is disgusting, people. Like putting the soap in, putting it on my thing, scrubbing it, washing my hands 4 times. Yeah, it's just yeah. So I'm clean for sure. So yeah. So let me know kind of like on those standpoints and how do we kind of get in the
Mm.
grateful, not greedy side because it's a complicated thing and I don't want to be stressed all the time, but I also, as you know, if you let it go a little, pretty soon you don't realize, maybe this is what the guys go through. You don't realize that your house is kind of messy. You know? You just
Mm.
don't even realize it.
Yeah, because I mean, part of it is the mess builds up slowly. So when things build up slowly, we don't see them as much, right? It's not like one day it's totally clean and uncluttered, and the next day it's totally messy and dust bunnies and cluttered everywhere. It usually builds up slowly when you're there contributing to it, right? So you're just like, oh, and it's not a big deal. But I mean, I like the distinction between clean and cluttered, right? And those are two
Very
different
different.
I
Maybe even different
I am in
personalities.
both of
Yeah.
those. Yeah, and for me, like, those are 2 different, they're not on the same spectrum, they're different definitions of, like, do you need an uncluttered house, or is clutter okay? Do you need a clean house, or is a little messy
Mhm.
okay? And so those are 2 different things. That's stuff in places versus, like, dust bunnies and fingerprints, right? That's not what I would put, like,
Yes.
dirty. And both of those, I can tell you, I like it clean and uncluttered. There's certainly places in my house that I'm like, okay, I'm okay with accepting clutter in these places.
Yeah.
Like my son's room, or, like when he comes home and drops his bags, like some clutter there. I'm like, okay, fine. But in general, both of those are like, I function better with both of those minimalized.
Rach, I
I
function
like to have
better.
my house
Yeah,
clean.
it's just I just have to decide how many hours of the
Yeah,
day I'm gonna actually function
it,
on any on any
true.
level.
Well, and maybe that's like, I mean, you have 4 kids, I have 1. So, like, my clutter is
Yeah, I need to
1/4
reevaluate
of
my
what your kid
minimalism
clutters.
through getting rid of my kids. It's a very good point.
Yes, that's
I'm
one
gonna
piece. And
I'm
then,
gonna adopt minimalism. I'm gonna start by getting rid of half of these kids. That's gonna be the start. They need their own place.
great. So then you have kids, but then when you have a partner, that's a whole
It
other
is, yeah,
human
it's true.
too. So kids have their clutter, but a partner is a whole other human that is around your age, that has the same baggage, that has the
Well,
same,
like I said,
like,
hobbies and,
history,
yeah, their
hobbies.
own
Yeah,
stuff that they like to
totally.
do and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, with kids, there's one thing that they go through phases and whatever, but with a fellow adult, we all have our things and the things that bring us joy and that we want around us. And having a whole other human there is a big
It's a huge
difference.
difference. That's actually
So,
such a good point. It's a
so
huge difference.
you're talking to me that I'm like, I have one kid.
Yeah.
I don't have a partner here. I don't have
But you have the distinction though, Rach,
so
and you could be helpful in that, because I'm wondering if you're even willing to talk about that because that you had a partner, right? And then you
mm,
don't. And so
yeah.
I remember when my kids were little, to your point about control and cleanliness and all this, when my kids were little, we put our house on the market for a certain amount of time because we were going to move and whatever. So we put our house on the market and my realtor was like, and this is a long time ago. People weren't staging homes. This was not like a thing, right? And he's like, Kris, no one can believe that you have 4 kids who live here. Like no one can believe it because I had all the control. When my kids were little, I was like, these toys go here. This goes there.
Right.
This little car goes here. Oh, these toys are out. This little, right? I mean, it was
True.
pristine. Like when I say pristine, I mean pristine. Like literally, he's bringing people through my house and they don't even know that I have, 4 kids. They think I have a kid maybe somewhere in the back. Just for show, just to sell
Well,
the house.
yeah,
But to
and
your
that's a
point,
good
it's a
point
really
because
good
when
point because it's so true, right? Because then I was basically living alone in that way because I could manage all the things the way that I wanted to manage them. I
yes,
could have, like I've said
yes,
before, when your kids are little,
yes.
you're like, these are the hobbies you have, and these are the books you're going to read. And I'm all about books. I'm all about that.
Mhm.
Yeah, but I was able to curate their rooms, put their little books in the way that I could deal with it because I also gosh, this is a loaded conversation. I wanted their little monkey minds to be free. I wanted their little minds
Mm.
not to be because, there's that whole this is a somewhat of an aside, but not really. There's that whole thinking in Montessori where those a true Montessori classroom does not have like a bunch of colored plastic toys and mayhem and flags and all that stuff. They have wooden tables, wooden blocks. So the whole concept is they're allowing the kids' creativity to come through to be the message, right? And the message is not in the living space. It's almost you feel like you're in school in Sweden, or in Denmark, right? And just like walk in, there's like a
Yeah.
little, like a very minimalist kind of look, and you're
Yeah.
in like a preschool classroom, right? So I unknowingly was kind of had the same thought, but I also had it for me, and I was able to do it that way, which is actually an interesting point, because you're right. I didn't have I didn't have all the complexities of when your kids start bringing home their own stuff
Yeah.
and having their own opinions
Yeah.
about what goes where and all that.
And their attachment to stuff,
Completely,
right?
yes. And my attachment to
Yeah.
stuff, in
So,
fairness to them, my attachment to stuff as they get older and do things. And I mean, my daughter made this globe that she literally had to like color pencil the whole thing, and it's like a globe, right? So it's geometry, right? She had to use a straight flap big paper, and then cut it into sections to make like triangles ish, that so they would all go up to make the globe, right? I thought it was amazing. I must have taken her a week, but she's like, whatever. And that globe is still hanging out in my garage because I can't let go of that globe. I think it's so amazing. I'm like, wow, she took so much time. Plus, it's there's a lot of stuff to it. So, in fairness to
yeah,
them,
there's a
it's
lot
my
to it.
attachment also, which
Ooh,
again is the
yeah,
layered
that's
the
true.
layered complexity of these conversations. I think on the grateful not greedy side, it's kind of like, do we have to decide? Do we have to decide the mental stability, if you will, the mental clarity versus like even I don't know, because it's time, it's attention, because that all that stuff just draws your attention away from your everyday life, because it's more stuff. And I don't even have a lot of stuff, right? I just have an amount of stuff that's consistent with that amount of people, right?
Yeah, well, and and everybody has a different opinion. So you might have one item and one person, one kid or partner is like, I don't need it. But then you're like, well, I find it special.
Right.
So it's not like, so when one person says I can get rid of it, everybody else has to agree. So then you're like, then it's like, well, who overrides? Well, usually the person that wants it says, I'm going to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Right. And so then it's even harder the more no, the more amount of people you're bringing in is even harder to get rid of things because everyone has an opinion, an attachment, a
Yeah.
memory, right?
Yes.
And that makes it challenging to get to that point. And your question about like when I had a partner versus not having a partner, it was a huge difference. Um, to notice how much was gone like that, how much clutter I didn't deal with, how much like less cleaning to do, like all
Yeah.
of that. Like it just was because when you take one out, I mean, you maybe have noticed this as each kid, two kids
Go
have
to
gone off to
college. Yeah.
school. When
Mhm.
they're gone, yeah, when they've gone off to college, like when they're gone, you notice that there's a little bit of a load taken
Mhm.
off. And depending on which kid it is, it's more
Right.
or less,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so that's the difference. But here's the thing with a kid going to school or a partner, leaving or moving out, there's still stuff here. And so there
Correct.
has to be like a kid going back to school comes home. So you're not going to get rid of everything, right? Like you want them to have their things when they come home and feel still like home. And I also feel like I did some of that, but I need to do another round of purging because that partner's not coming back,
Right.
right? But there's stuff here that is like, I don't need that now. That doesn't serve me now. And why am I holding on to that? And that has to happen for me. It's like I do it once, wait, a year, do it again, wait another period of time, like do it. And now I feel like I'm at that point where I'm like, now I'm ready to really purge it all, like really go in and do the deep dive in to pull out the things that just don't apply anymore. Because that is a big shift and that can happen in life in general, like different phases of life. But when you take a partner out, when there's an end of a marriage or a long-term relationship, that is a big piece that now that opinion, that person is no longer a part of the formula. And that takes time for me to actually uncouple that, like to unwind that because I'm like, oh, I need that. And then now I'm like, no, I really don't need it. That was from my marriage. And that's not who I am anymore. That's not like how my life is anymore. And that for me I mean, it's been over 4 years now. So
Yeah, but it's a process,
it's
right?
taken
It's like a
time.
process, and I would imagine, like, I'm going through it now as I'm not close to being an empty nester, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
You're
Like,
half
I'm actually having fun. I
halfway.
love having my kids in high school. But the but your point about, one person leaving and then how that changes that, I'm sure it's the same. I am definitely going through it now because my oldest has has really just taken on his new place of living, which is not in my state, and he's not going to live here anymore again. And so even that, it's like, okay, well, but then can you take this stuff? He's like, he's not quite old enough to have his own home or a place that's big enough to have that stuff.
Right.
And I remember my girlfriend, I don't know how long ago, she was married at the time and everything, but her mom called her, doing one of these big, like, all my kids are out of the house and I'm downsizing or whatever. And she's like, hey, look, your saddle's here. She's a horse rider, right? Your saddle's here, your bridle's here, your this, your that. And I'm going to be moving on this date and your stuff needs to be out by this. If you want it, come get it. If not, whatever, I'll just, I'll take care of it. She's just like, but it's true, right? I mean, I'm like, come on,
Right.
you're a grown woman, you have your own stuff. Like your mom can't be holding on to
Yes.
this and that. So let me tell you another story too, and then we can weave it all together because this is another thing that kind of really hit me. And this is part of the difficulty. I think this is part of the conflation because I was um I was out shopping, recently just for like holidays and stuff, and really fun on one of those days when it gets really quiet and like there's not a lot of people around. And I'm shopping local, and so went into one of my little local shops, and I thought, "Oh, I'll just grab a hostess gift for whatever." So I'm talking with her, and I have a lot of friends who are European or French or whatever. So I was like, "Oh, I need a little gift, this, that, and the other." So she's bringing me some stuff, and I was like, "Oh, my friend's, French, so I know she'll really love that because it's just, they cook a lot, they make dinners, they do all this stuff, right? So they have very rich culture in cooking." So she's like, "Oh, I have some of our best friends, live in Strasbourg, and they come and see us, and we start having this conversation about the French culture. Great." And then I was like, "You know what? You would probably know this because she has a home store." And I said, "You know what my French friends do really well, I think, is they don't stress about their homes. They live in their homes." And I said, "When I go to my friend's house, and not even my friends here, my friends in France, when I go to my friends in France, they don't have the same uptight annoyance about living in their homes. Like their kitchens are lived in. There is stuff on the counter that they're using for dinner that night. The dishes can be stacked on the counter, next to each other. The office, the bureau can have books in little stacks and, stuff to the side and little knickknacks
Mhm.
and like what in California you'd be like, "Oh, that's not so chic," it just did it. But everyone wants to have this whole
Mhm.
country life. They have this whole fantasy about, going to France and living in the country. But I feel my impression, and she was like, "I think you're totally right." She said, "When people here are so uptight about the way that their house is like so curated, it has to look like a model home, it's not just part
Mhm.
like a living being in their life, right? It's not just part of the process of living is that you have this home. It becomes like either a stress point or a job, because you're constantly like running around, like
Mhm.
picking this up and picking that up, rather than just kind of like a more fluid, living, breathing space. And I feel like my French friends do it well, like strike a really nice balance of having like beautiful art on the walls and, a little antique table and, and then the tomatoes out and, ripening on the counter, totally fine, right? And then a couple dishes left over from, the night before, the champagne that's going to get opened this afternoon for, whatever they're doing. So we can speak to that too, because I think there's a concept like you're talking about where yes, you want it to be less stressful for you personally, like in your head, you think you're gonna walk in and it's gonna be less stressful.
Mhm.
However, on the grateful, not greedy side, there's also the potential to shift that mindset to view your home and your living space as a living, breathing thing that also has requirements, that also has, you know, ways of being on its own and having a blanket on the couch. Does it always have to be folded exactly correct and put behind the pillows so that or can it be kind of flopped over because, your kids have been living on that couch for the last 3 nights. You know what I mean? It's like, where's the balance?
Yeah.
And grateful, not greedy. How can we shift and is there yeah, is this shifting from the perspective, or is this shifting from I just need to, get rid of all my stuff, or I just need to, put a lot of judgments on myself and figure out how to be more organized or use this space better or whatever it is, because there's just a lot of I'm feeling it right now even having this conversation. And your point about the women men, because I have refuted this greatly. People walk into my house. My house is a mess. I'm sorry. I barely live here. Truthfully, like I only live here to clean up. I mean, otherwise, I'm in my car. The other the other 12 to 18 hours of the day, I'm in my car. I'm out doing stuff. I barely live here. So why is that? And I think this is really important for women.
Mhm.
And to your point, because someone comes into your home and the judgments is on me. No one's looking at my kids or my husband saying like, "Oh gosh, oh, your
Ah,
house is kind of like in a little
interesting.
bit of disarray," and even if it's their hobbies. My son plays guitar. We have, 5 or 6 guitars at any one time in our living room. In our living room, ready to go, right? But no one's saying like, "Oh, hey, that's, hey, buddy, you're going to pick up some of those guitars. Do they all need to be here? Or put them in your room or anything like that?" No. No, it's going to be
Mhm.
I feel like it's going to be reflected on me, and I firmly refuted that. Like, that is something that I've been very proactive about. You know what? I'm not taking this on. I'm not taking this on. I clean out my garage twice a year. I do what I can. I clean up my house constantly. I do what I can. But I also am not going to take that as saying something about me because,
Yeah,
right? Because I've got
yeah,
stuff when you come in from
yeah.
the front door or the garage or whatever like that. So there's just a lot. There's a lot in this conversation, I feel like.
I never thought of that of how when people come into your home, the judgment or the
Or the
compliment is
compliment.
always directed to the woman,
Yes.
right? Like, wow, your house is really, or it's really beautiful.
Mm.
And it's said to the woman,
Yes.
right? And so we get the good and the bad, which is like, but that is training, right?
Yes.
Because we get praised for it. We are being trained to not want to get the, kind of messy today
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
comment directed at us
Yeah.
either. Like, wow, and it's sometimes the comments like, wow, I don't know how you can manage all this, which
Mm.
is basically saying this place is a mess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is,
And even
I'm
from
sure
other
we
women, and I
observe
don't
that
think we
growing up.
realize we're doing it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
do it
No,
because
we
I love
don't.
I
I
love
never
the
thought
French
about
way. The
that.
French way is whatever, you live in your house, your kitchen's your kitchen, you're gonna make quiche
Yeah.
in a minute, leave the blender off, like, whatever, so it's all good. But,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't say that, like, I don't know if
But I
all French are
think
way this way, it's just that the friends I have are very fluid. I love it. I mean, it's so freeing to walk into their homes, especially my friends who live in France. You walk in their homes and you just feel like, "God, I can, like, let my hair down." Like, thank God, it's great.
all right, but I would challenge you, like my experience with the times I've been in friends that are French in their homes in France,
Yeah,
right? That there's less stuff in general though,
I don't think
right?
that's
Like
true,
there's
and not in mine.
I mean, okay, so I believe like there's this, or okay,
Oh,
let me
you mean
rephrase
they're
this. The
more
stuff that
curated.
is
They don't
in
have
there.
the ready they don't have the what do we call it? Like, all the stuff, the quick stuff, like the
Yeah.
cheap furniture and
Yeah. Like they have
the extra set of dishes and the stuff
totally.
like that.
Yeah.
Um,
They might have a couch, but it's like this couch that was their grandma's and they like, and it has the big pillows on it and it just seems to be a
interesting.
more,
Yeah,
I want to
that could
say
be true.
more curated
Mhm.
specifically, like, and not in the sense that they're like, we need to create the best French home. They're just like, okay, we're only bringing in the things. We're not constantly
That's
going
true.
out and getting more.
Yeah,
Like, and I see
that's
that
true.
with like
Okay,
the
that's
kids'
very
toys.
true. Yeah,
And so that can help create that environment. And that also can foster like saying like I can leave stuff out because there's not stuff everywhere,
mhm.
right? And we have, I would say in the US, we have more of a consumer culture in
Good
general.
point. Yeah,
And that shows in our homes.
yeah,
And I do find it interesting though, like when I'm thinking about the French homes I've been in, they have been a lot more relaxed and it is not completely organized. But there's less consumer culture
that's so
there.
true.
And so the things that are there are, you know, like, and they actually,
Intentional. Yeah,
you, they're, they're intentional and they look interesting and they
yes,
feel interesting. Like even
totally.
their dishes, they're not perfect. They're a
Right, they
little
don't I
chipped.
remember that.
But
Gosh.
they are like Yeah,
I
I know. Isn't
remember
it
learning
interesting?
that. When I was in France as a young person, I remember learning that, and I was like, "Oh, this is so great." My friend's sister was getting married, and she had on her registry from an estate store. This is an aside, but it's also relevant. From an estate store, she'd registered at this, because they have all these beautiful pieces. And I actually one year was able to get them up in a place in LA too. This just odd matched stuff, and she'd registered just for silverware. So she was getting, it was the coolest thing. So she was getting these, like
Huh.
sterling pieces or like a stainless piece, but mostly sterling because they were older pieces. Um, and she would put
Mhm.
him like so she had all this mismatched silverware, beautiful stuff, and then she'd throw them in the dishwasher. I was like, talk about mind blown. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And yes, you're not supposed to touch the silver to like a metal because then whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know what? Honestly, Rach, who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Right? So like put it
Just
in the,
use it.
because
Yeah.
the easy, like I'm going to put this in the dishwasher and guess what? I'm going to use it again. It's going to be amazing. And maybe it's not going to look the best or whatever. But yeah, to your point, gosh, that's like a really good point. I don't know where we're going to like weave this back into organizing my house, but, but yeah, but it's a mindset, which is, I think that's the relevant
It
point
is
that
a
we're kind of
mindset.
uncovering here is it's a mindset. It's also your consumer cultures for sure. And I mean, my issue is papers. I mean, we can get to that. My issue is for sure in paper because
But
I just have a lot of that.
yeah, so I want to go back to the French example.
Hmm.
And one of the things is like the mismatched stuff is part of that experience.
Completely.
And
It's amazing.
and that and it's like the more mismatched and the older and the like beat up and like that's just like and I think there's like when you see that, it gives you permission that things are mismatched and not perfect to have your house be mismatched and not perfect.
Hmm.
Like it sets the tone and I would say in our culture and the US culture, it's supposed to be perfect,
Yeah.
curated, matching, right? And so right there, it's putting on another level of stress and of expectations.
Well, it's not
But
very
then you walk
creative
into a
because then it's
French
like, buy
home.
the bedroom set. You're like, "Wow, no one buys a bedroom set." Like, "What?" Like,
Yeah.
you might buy 2
Yes.
pieces, but do
And
you buy all 6? Like, I don't know, right?
I don't know. But I yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen any I'm trying to think of the French homes I've been in, like, there's never a matched whole set of anything,
No.
and maybe that's the key here is be okay with the mismatch and be okay with the imperfections, and that can take some of the stress off. And, but then if we take the other lesson of curating, of not just bringing everything in, of not constantly adding, because I think the adding creates the clutter and the mess and all of that. And, or that more is better and all of that stuff that seems to come more with this culture, more with our culture
Mhm.
that creates that really difficult place where you're like, I need it to look nice and organized, but I'm always adding. And so are all the other people in my home adding. And how do we balance the two? Which creates stress,
Yeah.
right? Which is like the whole point of this discussion is like, I think for me, it's okay, what is my comfort zone? What's going to give me the least amount of stress? Cluttered, uncluttered, somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. Great. Get there. And then how do I achieve that? So that's the clutter piece. Like what am I comfort zone in? And what am I able to achieve given the people that are in my
Right,
home?
what's achievable.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
I have a 16-year-old and he comes home with 2 backpacks. He has his backpack and his wrestling backpack, and they're both big, and they come home and they, like, drop right by my couch, and at first I would like, drove me crazy, but then I was like, "You know what? I don't care. It's
Let
2
it go.
backpacks." He
Yes,
unpacks
good
them,
lesson.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, just let it go,
yeah.
right? Like, I'm like, "This is not a battle I wanna fight." Like, I get why they're out here. They're gonna be gone the next morning, and then one of my friends is like, "Wow, I can't believe you're just totally okay with that." I'm like, "I am." Because it doesn't like I'm like, this is
I
not
love that 'cause
this is
yeah.
fun."
It's one of those, like, it's how much
So
skin is it off my back versus, him just, like, being able to live
totally.
his life and right? Yeah.
Well, and then I look at it and I'm like, I don't have a, like, spot for him to put it when he
Right,
comes in right by the door. Like, I
right.
don't have that
It's
spot.
not
So I'm
like he
like,
missed the
I
spot
don't
that
have
you
the
created
spot.
for him. Yeah.
Totally. like, he knows where the shoes go, and that is a spot, and that is, like, something I'm like, "Put the shoes away," kinda thing. But these other things, I'm like, "No, this is not my battle. This is something I can totally adjust to and be fine with." And for having people over, I just put the backpacks down by the hallway and they're, like, out of the way, but otherwise, I don't mind them being there
Yeah.
for the, 12 hours he's home in between school, practice, and everything else, right? So for me, that is the piece of like what the clutter piece is like, what do I need and what can I achieve with the people that are in my home?
Yeah.
And that helps me get to a place of like being grateful for what I can like create, but also not greedy because they have opinions, they have their needs, they have their own stuff.
Yes.
And how he looks at clutter is very different than how I look at clutter. And it doesn't make him bad. We're just different. And he's also a boy on top of that. So this
Right,
stuff
and he's
doesn't
just
stress him
kinda
out.
getting his own
Right.
yeah, yeah, his own
Yeah.
way of
And
what
he,
he
he was
likes and
16.
exactly.
Totally. So for me, I break it down by that for the clutter. And then for the cleanliness, it's like, what do I need to feel like relaxed in my home? Because it is gonna be me that like does most of the cleaning.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
can tell him like do this, this, and this. But it is me and it is something for me. It's not
Right.
for him.
Yeah,
It is
I
for
say that too
me,
as I
right?
go into
Like,
my girls' sinks and wipe them out. I'm like, "This is for me,"
yeah.
because they don't care. They
Great.
don't care.
So I'm like, there are things that I just don't like. I do not like sand on my floor. I live by the beach.
Right.
I like going constantly. I'm like, that's one thing I don't tolerate. I don't like the feel of it. So I'm always like, floor's clean, like wipe feet before you come in, get the sand off kind of thing. And so those are the things that like there's certain things in my home that are always clean that make my house make me feel like it's clean, but I don't go crazy on it. It's like, what are the key things in my home that when they're clean, I feel like my whole house is clean?
Oh, yeah, I have that, my kitchen island. Yes, my kitchen island,
Yeah,
my kitchen's
see, you have
clean.
it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, no, that we could talk about that too because we have you and I have talked about that, like, I will go through and do, like, 1 drawer in my kitchen, and I have
Mhm.
20 minutes, I will take 20 minutes, and I will do even if it's, like, 1 spot of my I don't have a big pantry either, I don't have a walk-in pantry, I don't have any of that fancy stuff, I have, like I have an open it you
You
have a
have a
walk-in
house that
pantry,
was
you have
not
that
built.
amazing spot, yeah, like, that's the thing, if you don't have, like, all these extra spaces to put stuff, I want everyone who doesn't have the 10,000 square feet of abundance to also be gentle on yourself because I also don't have that, and I've had to learn to be gentle on myself because a lot of mine is just it's space restriction, it's a lot of people, there's different stuff like that. So one of the ways I manage my stress and get a little bit under control is to do the one drawer at a time. So like I said, if I have 20 minutes, I'll just I mean your crap drawer in the kitchen that kind of ends up being more crappy than you want it to be. Like I'll edit that, just throw away all the pens, get rid of all the extra retractors and stuff that we keep in there. Protractors, I guess that's protractor things, we end up with like 6 of those, toss those and, whatever, just so we have like a very clean kind of crap drawer. Or I'll go through the cups and the dishes and stuff like that where we've picked up, Ben and Jerry's had a special souvenir cup, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
great. I don't need that, get rid of those. So that's kind of like an easy way to get at least to get some bit of control. But your point about the clean, if my kitchen island, honestly, my kitchen table is like the bonus because it's all in the same shared space. But if my kitchen island is clean, I, I can breathe. Let's just say that. And right now I can't breathe, I
Mm,
can tell you, because
yeah.
it's not clean. There's stuff on there. And when someone comes and you're like my daughters, like their boyfriends bring them flowers, I'm like, oh, that's so amazing. That's so great. I love it. But then we put the flowers on the island and I'm like, after a couple days, I'm like, okay, no more flowers. I can't. I need to move them to the other side. I move them to the other counter because I don't want. I want to walk in and see at least the one piece of my island, clean.
Yeah. Totally. That's great. Like, it's like find the one battle you like, the one thing you wanna put your flag or to like stake the claim on and, hopefully inform the rest of the crew that lives in your house that that is where you put you're sticking your flag in there, you're staking that claim. Um and make that happen. And there's like for me too, when I go to sleep at night, like, I like to have my kitchen mostly cleaned up, right? Because I don't like waking up to, like, mayhem in my kitchen because it's just like, "Oh, that starts my day that way." It feels and it doesn't mean everything has to be in its place, but it doesn't mean, like, there's dishes everywhere. It doesn't mean, like, at least, like, the counters look relatively clean, you know? Like, I can't I like coming down and if I had my choice, it would be always clean when I came down, but I've gotten much more relaxed about that. Um, and but the nights that I am able to clean it and put it away, like, I just had some friends over for dinner last night, and I got, like I cleaned all up, wiped everything down, and this morning I came down, and I was like, "Oh, so nice." And then I thought, "Oh, this is really interesting how I react to, being able to, like, start my day that way."
Yeah, like it
Especially
almost like
knowing that
makes
we
it
were gonna be
okay.
talking
Makes
about
it
this.
okay for you.
Well, it's like it's also like, now I understand why it was important for me to do it last night. Like, I coulda gone up and gone to bed a few minutes earlier, but that was worth it for me, and that's where I can look at it that I'm like, "Okay, I didn't stay up until midnight cleaning it. I just stayed up a few extra minutes to, like, wipe down the counters and, like, make sure the dishwasher was loaded." Now, you know, so then when I came down came down this morning, it looked great. And, in the middle of the night, like, my 16-year-old came out and ate something and, whatever, but it wasn't a mess in the morning. And, it definitely started my place, like, my space is a little like, it didn't give me that stress hit right away, right? Because I know that that is part of me too, that, when things are really messy, I have a hard time feeling focused. So, uh, I I would probably say for me, I've gotten better in that it doesn't have to be exact. And it doesn't have to be there's no dishes in the sink. And it doesn't have to be that all the dishes in the drying rack are put away. I've let go of those things. But I still want some organization that I don't come in and my day starts off with mayhem.
Yeah, Rach, so I see your point about the perfectionism and all that too, because I think that that's part of even the judgment that we were talking about before, how it, you know, if it's clean, it's like all of a sudden you're okay, right? It's like, oh, well, she's amazing. Look at this beautiful home she has, and even some people sometimes will come over, they're like, oh, you have a beautiful home, and you're right, they say it to me. But then if I don't have a beautiful home, then that's also on me, and staking my claim on the island, staking my claim here, and the other thing that I haven't really evaluated is how much, I have a revolving door of young adults and teenagers coming through my house, and that also creates anxiety because I want them to be comfortable, I want them to
Mhm.
be chill and whatever, but the way that teenagers live and the way that adults live are totally different, right? So I'm also not that mom, and I've gone through this whole scenario too. So this will just be a little interlude here, but the scenario of, like I said, when my kids were younger, I was able to kind of, be comfortable controlling their space, if you will, like, oh, the little things go here and the little things go here. But as they get older, they have all their hobbies. They have stuff they want to do. My daughter's doing like clay or whatever. Like has a bunch of girlfriends over the other night at midnight. They're like doing clay and stuff on the table, and then they leave it out because they're gonna pick it up the next day. They're really not. And then the next day, I was like, "Hey, are you gonna pick up this clay?" And she's like, "Yeah, yeah, we're gonna keep doing it tonight. So and so's coming over." And then the next morning, I was like, "Did so and so come over last night?" She's like, "Oh no, she didn't." I was like, "Okay," and I don't even ask. I'm just like, I'm gonna clean up this clay, and because at some point, right, I kind of have to do it. So I understand for sure when you have a lot of people in you have young kids, and then you have middle-aged kids, and then you have older kids. It's not the same conversation as let's all be minimalists, let's all just I feel very judged. I mean, when I'm like going rolling through my Instagram, which I don't do very much at all anymore because it's right. That's another whole
Mhm.
conversation. That's another podcast. But I don't really do that very much because it's not encouraging to me. It's discouraging to me. And I don't feel seen. I don't feel seen when I'm listening to people talk about their experience with, their all their Amazon finds that, as they're going through their, 10,000 square foot house, which is probably in, I don't know, someplace other than Southern California. It's not here, I can tell you that. I don't know where it is. It's someplace else in the country because that's where those homes are. But yeah, like, and all their fines. So, which is all part of your conversation too. So I think the way I can look at this is one, I need to get help, and I have done that, and that's very helpful, is to get help. For instance, if you were here and you came over and I was like, "Hey, Rach, let's go through the closet." I find like the buddy system on this
Mm.
is super duper helpful. And I just had a friend come over and help me run through my garage. God bless her. Help me go through my garage in a day. We just like powered through it, got rid of stuff, took stuff to Goodwill, and just decided what would be there. And now I can breathe in my garage, and that was really great. And I would say that kind of for everything. But the larger point that you're making also is not to have that be a once every 6-month process. The little pieces. If you're cleaning your kitchen every night, good for you. I kind of do. I don't always, because I'm exhausted by midnight when my kitchen
Mhm.
closes. Sometimes it closes at 1, sometimes 2. I don't know. I don't know what time my kitchen is going to close. It's not early. It's not like 7:30 and I can put the dishes away. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think it's for me, it's letting myself off the hook, but I still haven't really resolved. I'm getting it from kind of what you're saying. I think I probably need to be more judicious in the pieces, even because one of the things I read somewhat recently was about even editing your house, and how you're always thinking about the stuff to edit, like the cups or the extra towels or whatever, but you're not thinking about furniture. And furniture is a really good edit also, that
Yeah.
can be done, that I'm sure I need to or I could definitely do. But that's a hard thing, because you're like, "Oh, I love this piece," but that doesn't mean that it works in your house, or that you need it or whatever. And then you have to decide. You have to decide, is your house about being well, or meet in the middle if you're one of those people. But is your house about being curated and neat and, put together and tied up with a bow all the time? Because you can't really live there as easily.
Mm.
Maybe you can. I'll find someone who does this. Or can you have a little more fluid approach? And that involves being grateful, not greedy. That involves, I'm grateful that I have a home that my kids are comfortable in, that
Yeah.
their friends feel comfortable coming to. That is not Architectural Digest ready by any stretch, any day. Or is your value system more, I want my home to be more Architectural Digest or Home and Gardens, whatever you read, and then maybe being less flexible with the way that your home is used, with the the way that it's done. Because the daily tasks I get, like the dishwasher gets emptied in the morning, it gets, loaded at night, emptied in the morning or whatever. But even those things get away from you, because it's just hard. It's just a lot. It's a lot of work constantly, especially then if you have a whole outside to add to that. It's it just bleeds. So help me out, kind of
It does.
frame that a little bit, because that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. So for me, I think it's understanding where I sit on the clutter scale, and what I'm able to achieve given the people that are in my home with me at that time. So like if I'm thinking I'm a minimalist, but I have a teenage kid, that's gonna be a really hard battle to win all the time. So let's reset those expectations. And that's like the grateful not greedy part here is like, grateful I have a son who's exploring lots of things that he enjoys, everything from like spearfishing to surfing to wrestling, like, and all that comes with stuff and all that needs things in order to do them. And so that's where the gratitude comes in because that's what I want for him. That's why I choose to live here. That's why, that's one of the things I highly value. And even though I value like not a cluttered home, that comes with clutter. So finding the gratitude there and not getting greedy about that, like having a realistic expectation. So setting that for me in a place that allows me to have success is really important. So that's one step. And then the clean part is the idea of like what are my things that need to be clean that make me feel like my house is clean. And it might be like the wipe down sink. Sometimes it's a scrubbed out kitchen sink that like is all shiny. I'm like, whoo, brings me lots of joy. Right. Like, and it's like to you, like the 20-minute drawer clean, like also gives you, I know you're always like, you sent me a picture, like, look, my drawer. I was like, amazing. Right. And that's where like, find those things that create that, like, gratitude piece for you and are easy to do where it doesn't require you to purge the whole kitchen, which takes days and creates so much mayhem in the house. So, like, I think it's chunking it and then realizing what the like setting the correct expectations for the people that live in the house with you that are also living their lives. And,
Yeah.
I think that that is, that weaves in that, grateful, not greedy part because, we all had kids, right? And we knew they were going to make a mess. Like they come in with sticky fingers when they're young. They like plant their hands all over your glass doors and all over your stainless steel refrigerator. And you're just like, why am I doing this? And that's when being able to step back into the grateful, not greedy framework really helps because you have to remember like what is coming with that mess, right?
Yeah,
And
I think you're helping actually in a big way with the chunking because as you're saying that, I'm like, it's a valid point because for me, maybe it's not the kitchen because the kitchen is party central in my house. I imagine it is in most homes, right? Party central, and I'm talking like 10 kids, 8 kids all at any one time. I don't even know what's going to happen today. It's like every day is a new day. So, and new kids and people I don't know, whatever. But your larger point is the chunking is I think what I can do is decide that one room, choose a room. One room is going to be curated and awesome. And I can stake just like I stake my kitchen island. I can kind of say, you know what? This is my room to have clean. Uh 20 hours of the day, or 16 hours of the day. Yes, we can use it and yes, whatever. Like those people used to watch with like, that would just vacuum their thing 100 times. But to be able to say it's actually that's really freeing is if I can adopt that, I can say, okay, there's one or two rooms in my home, whether that's your bedroom or your living room or what, even you
or
could do
your
it in your bedroom because
bathroom, right?
that's yours, right? That you can say, this is the room that I'm going to choose as the way that I reflect back to myself or as my sanctuary or as my little altar of cleanliness or organization or whatever it is. And because that I think is the difficulty too. As the stuff comes, it's kind of like, well, this room's free. I mean, that's what happens in my house. Well, there's an extra space here. We can put the guitars here in the entryway. There's nothing in the entryway. Why don't we just put the extra guitars here? It's like, because it's an entryway. It's like because that's where people kind of come in. Most people don't play guitar. That's not like they're like
Yeah.
everyone's coming to my house is like, sweet, great. I'll just pick this guitar up on my way into the kitchen. So yeah, so being able to do that, the one drawer at a time thing I find is incredibly helpful. The evaluation on my garage only because that's where it's like an entryway. It's like a back entrance. You have to go through my garage to get into the kitchen and all that. So the garage is relevant because it's almost like one of the other spaces. So keeping that, getting some help to go through that, I feel like is helpful to me. I wish the rest of my family were as interested in it as I am. And then yeah, the one drawer at a time. And then also that your house is meant to be lived in. It's not a museum.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not a museum. Does it say, art museum on the outside of my door? I don't think so. Would have a different tax structure if it did, but it doesn't. And so I think, yeah, a lot of that is just being able to let yourself off the hook a little bit with it. Decide what's important. Choose one room, start there, and then have that be kind of like your panacea, right? Like I have this one room that is my room, and it's probably not going to be the kitchen because that you can't you can't be as I don't it's more lived in, right? It just
For
and there's
you,
more
yeah.
more
Yeah,
people, stuff like that.
and this is like, and then to choose the room, like, maybe the room is too much and you just can't have a whole room. Maybe it's,
Yeah,
like, one counter spot, one,
that's a good point.
like, your own, the bathroom in your bedroom, like, whatever it is that you can control, that you can, like, go in there and take a deep breath and look around and be like, "Oh, see, it is organized," right?
Yeah.
And whatever that is, like, maybe it's just your desk, like, great. So I think that is a nice way to approach it and to have some, if that's important to you, to have that met, right? To have that area of cleanliness that you can look at and be like, "Okay, it's not everywhere, but right here I have it." So I love it.
Yeah, I think that's good. So, Rach, Thank you, because now I still have a lot of stuff to clean up just in general because, it's new year, new me. Yeah. So there's always that, people coming and going, people moving in, people moving out, I just have like, I'm in that phase of life. But I appreciate that because I think I have a better framework, especially in the grateful, not greedy, because the gratefulness is, I even have the opportunity to decide to choose to proact, like we talked about last week, right? To be able to choose proactively who
Yes.
I am in the world and what my values are and how I want them to show up, even in my own home, right? And even as a
Yes.
reflection of who I am. So I appreciate it even from that vantage point. So
Mm,
yeah,
it's good.
thank you. I love it.
Thanks, Chris.
So this has been, is, and forever will be the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. And aloha, Rach.
Aloha, Chris.